balance is like a term that's very loosely thrown around, but it looks different for everybody and it looks different for us from week to week. So it's important that we identify what's working and where we want to be first.
You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, episode number 520 with guest Amanda Walker. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am so glad that you're here. Thank you so much for pushing play and joining me today. Whether you are out and about, working out, driving, taking a shower, getting ready, whatever it is, I am just glad that I get to spend some time with you. And I have an announcement. I'm doing a giveaway. I love giveaways. I love giving you guys stuff. And I'm excited because, let me give you a tiny bit of backstory. Many, many years ago, in a land far away, which is actually kind of true. But you guys know my life fell apart. I was a mess. It was 2006, early 2007. I decided to just plunge into personal development. I was like, I got to change my life. And I don't know how else to start except with this amazing paper catalog that I would get in the mail from a company called Sounds True. And they don't make the actual catalog anymore. It's all online, of course. But back then you could buy CD sets. You could download MP3s. This was even before the smartphone. And we had, ways to listen to podcasts that are really easy. But I bought a few books from them. I bought some audios and had them on my iPod when I would go for a run. And Sounds True was pivotal in changing my life and helping me really gain so much self-awareness and all that good stuff that we're all here to do. So fast forward, during the pandemic, I get an email from someone at Sounds True, and they wanted to do a project with me. And I just was like, well, if this isn't the best full circle moment that ever existed in my life, I don't know what is. So to make a long story short, we went through some negotiations with my literary agent, and I have, with Sounds True, created a 6-hour workshop in a box called Getting Damn Good at Life. How great is that title, right? And it's really so much more than an audiobook. It's not an audiobook. There's not an accompanying, that's such a hard word for me, a book to go with it because it's an actual workshop. And I'm excited because it's all about the inner critic, which I've never written a book just about the inner critic. And it goes over so many different exercises. It's all that I have. All that I have on the inner critic. I talk about self-abandonment. I talk about shame. I talk about codependency. There's just so many exercises. I lost count after probably 10 of how many different tools and strategies I give in this workshop. So it is definitely workable. So you're going to want to have their paper workbook or something on your computer. It's really, you can listen to it just leisurely, passively in your car, but it really was meant to work through. So the links are in the show notes. And also I'm giving away 3 of them. They are the CDs though. So you do have to either have access to a CD player or something where you can play the CD and then put it on your computer or something. I guess you can do that and make it into an audio file to have on your phone. I'm going to give away 3 copies of it. So head on over to my Instagram. I'm at Hey Andrea Owen over on Instagram, and you'll see the giveaway over there. By the way, I'm recording this in April of 2023. So if you're listening to this far into the future, I'm sorry, but it's over at that point. But I'm just excited for you guys to work it. I don't have any online programs for you to do. So this is it. And I hope you love it. I put my heart and soul into it. I'm so incredibly grateful for Sounds True. They are an amazing company. They have so much good stuff. So check that out. The link is in the show description. And if you go over to andreaowen.com/books, it is over there. All right, I'm going to tell you about today's guest. Amanda Walker is here. She's so fantastic. I was on her show and I immediately said, you need to be on my show because I love her energy. I love what she talks about. And we are talking today about life balance, work-life balance. Yeah, you know that. We're talking a lot about motivational strategy, mindset to get what you want. And let's get to it because it's great. And Amanda is fantastic. Let me tell you a little bit about her. Amanda Walker is a certified master performance coach who helps service-based entrepreneurs reach their full potential. Amanda is a true coach's coach and is passionate about helping coaches and online service-based business owners get their clients massive results in order to grow a profitable coaching practice. She's the host of the Best Damn Coach podcast and runs the premier coaching program for coaches, Best Damn Coach. So without further ado, here is Amanda. Amanda, thank you so much for being here.
I'm so excited to be with you.
I want to start. I mean, you've been a coach for a really long time and you coach women primarily, correct?
Yep.
So I want to ask you this like very general question. And what I love to do for my people here on the podcast is like teach them tools to be able to heal themselves, help themselves, coach themselves. So how do you, I know it's like a lot of the work that you do. So how do you even start with that process with clients, teaching women to coach themselves?
Well, honestly, like before we can even have that conversation, I don't think a lot of people realize they can coach themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that often we're so, a client used this analogy once, and I think it's such a great, like our mind is like a rodeo, right? And it's like our thoughts are coming out of the chute so fast.
Yeah.
And we realize that we can actually be the cowgirl to like rope them in and pull them in and tug at them and assess them. And ultimately the gift I want to give anybody I get to talk to or work with is to become their best damn self coach, right? Which is what my coaching program from coaches is really about. But I think even more importantly is that we have to be our best coach, because even if we hire a coach, they're not with us 24/7.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't coach, at least this is my perspective. I don't want somebody to be codependent on me as a coach.
So reliant on you. Mm-hmm.
People out there that coach that way and they want their clients to be their lifelong people. That's not really my mission per se. So I guess before we even dive into that is just to let people know that the power is within you to become your best coach. We just sometimes need guidance on what tools actually work for us to step into that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I guess the first step would be like acceptance that you can coach yourself, like it can work. And I, in my opinion, there are some like sometimes I cannot see the forest past the trees or whatever.
You're like level 10 status.
Like sometimes I need someone to help me see things. So are there particular kind of general questions that you have people ask themselves or what's the next step?
Yeah, I agree. I think part of that is we do sometimes move into those extreme situations, but even in knowing that is already such a cool level of self-awareness. For me, I lived a lot of my young to mid-adult life. Well, I'm 41 now, but, to my 30s, not having realization. I was an extreme action taker. And so all of my life, I think we've kind of talked about.
You were or were not an action taker?
I am still.
Okay.
But my belief was up until this point was my actions created my results. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I could out muscle anything to create the outcomes that I wanted. And it wasn't until later in life that I realized there was so much that preceded that. Right. There was so much that happened inside my brain. Right. There were thoughts, there were pictures, there were feelings, and depending upon how those went, were actually driving my actions. And so step one is, I think we live in such a culture where we're just speed of light moving that a lot of us don't have the self-awareness to know that when we're not doing what we want, then there is something that precedes that. And so we have to slow down enough to first become self-aware that there's thoughts and there's our minds creating pictures and feelings and get real
so many feelings.
All the feelings.
Sorry to cut you off, but I just needed to emphasize that.
All the feelings. And those feelings actually are kind of important, just a wee bit.
Mm-hmm. I knew we were gonna get there eventually, but please continue.
Yeah. And so from there, I think that's the most important place to be. And the the big piece, like a big tool, let's just give a tangible tool, is I love to teach clients this notion of what I say is to always be at cause. And when we're in life, we're doing life, we can tend to fall on this in effect part of us. In effect means I don't take ownership of like what I necessarily want in my life. I tend to blame others.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything happened to me and, blah, 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 blah. The rest is kind of history. And honestly, when clients start with me, they're often in this place and it's not conscious. They don't necessarily know it, right? It's these things happened. I found myself at the bottom. Like I need your support. And my goal through coaching is to both teach them, but also guide them to how to be always at cause. And cause means I take radical ownership. I may not always have a best solution, but I'm willing to explore it.
Right.
And it adopts the belief that I am the best problem solver of my life. And it puts back the ownership and the power back in our court instead of feeling like everything's flurrying around us and we don't know why that is.
Mm-hmm.
And the question I love to just, a great self-coaching question is when we find ourselves feeling like everything's going on and we're maybe like talking to a girlfriend on the phone, right? Because they're such a great place to land sometimes. And when we're like, blah, 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 making all these statements around what's not happening in our life that we wish were, the question I give my clients is, but what do I want instead?
Mm-hmm.
And so the moment we ask ourselves that question, it immediately shifts us into a state of cause.
Yeah.
It
sounds like it kind of allows us to focus on the solution versus the problem.
100%. But when we're in ish, because the feelings are driving the bus, like we don't necessarily always have a back pocket question to go to. And I think that automatically is powerful. I see this in my kids too. Like when my kids come home and my son's been playing football, during lunchtime, and he complains about so-and-so wasn't a great quarterback and like all the things that kids do at lunch. And I hear him in effect. My question for him is, what do you want instead of those things? And immediately it sends his brain into becoming the best problem solver in his life.
That's interesting. It reminds me of, I've had a couple of conversations totally unrelated with clients lately about their own natural resourcefulness. And I think sometimes we can forget. Side note, I do think that this is kind of like what happened with Gen X and elder millennials like yourself, where we were raised a little bit feral, generally speaking, and like we were kind of forced to be resourceful. And now like many of us are parenting differently. Like, no, let me give you everything and do everything for you. Like, I'm like, oh my God, am I just setting my kids up to not be resourceful? Anyway, that's another conversation for another time. And maybe this is just for me to remind people listening, there's a really great saying from my coaching school alma mater, the Coaches Training Institute, where they tell us during our training, like your clients, all of them are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. It's such a beautiful statement and sentiment that I hope resonates with everyone listening. It's like, I think sometimes we just have to remind ourselves of the times we have been resourceful to remind us that we actually are inherently resourceful. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, totally agree. And to my alma mater, LCS, it's that your client has everything they need right now to create the results they desire, right? It's this same belief that we don't need to change our circumstances, because I think this is a core belief that many of us struggle with. And I'm guilty of it too, is if I change X, then I will be able to have Y. Mm-hmm. Right? But so much of what we're seeking in as far as transformation in our life isn't about the thing, right? It isn't about a better relationship with our spouse or more well-behaved kids or more money or 10 pounds down or 20 pounds down, right? It's the feeling that we will feel once we arrive at that destination. Mm-hmm. And once we have the tools in our life to see that it's the feeling we're after actually, mm-hmm. and that's accessible to us literally right now when we choose thoughts that align with it. For me, that was freeing in my own life, but I just see like all the lights go on in clients' eyes and they realize like it's not about the finish line that they think they're past. Like it's accessible in this moment.
I remember learning that years and years and years ago about how it's really never about the thing that we want. It's the feeling that we think we're going to get from it. Because sometimes I remember thinking like, okay, as soon as I get a book deal, my very first book deal, then I'm going to have X, Y, and Z. And those things didn't come. It kind of felt like a kerplunk. And not that it wasn't fun and great, but I felt like that was going to answer all of my problems. It's like, oh, here I am.
Yeah.
It was
Talk about like the upper limit experience, right? When you're
Totally.
like, joy, book, and then all hell.
Yeah. I don't mean to be dismissive about the success. Like, I'm grateful for it. It just, I had expectations of how it was going to make me feel. And not only that, but like how other things it was going to bring. And it ended up just being like my regular life. Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. With Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers inline and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. Get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone, transform your tablet into a point of sale system, or use Shopify's POS Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/noise, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/noise to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/noise. Today's podcast is sponsored by MIDI Health. Ladies, are you over 40 like me and dealing with hot flashes, insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, some vaginal dryness, or weight gain? Don't just accept it as part of aging. These symptoms are often linked to hormonal changes during perimenopause and menopause. At MIDI Health, they get it. Their experts know what you're going through and how to help. MIDI clinicians are menopause specialists offering safe, effective, FDA-approved solutions. And guess what? MIDI care is covered by insurance. So stop pushing through it alone. Schedule a virtual visit and dive deep into your unique symptoms and health background. You'll walk away feeling heard and with a plan to start feeling better. Visit MIDI Health today and reclaim your well-being. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com. joinmidi.com. Talk to us about motivation. And I think you have a term called your motivational strategy. I don't know what that is. Like, tell us everything.
I feel like story is relative here. I was a teacher for 10 years and I left that job when I decided that the paychecks of $623 every other week were no longer satisfying for me and the mission and impact that I wanted to create in this world. And, my husband was a police officer. I was a teacher. We were making less than 60K and we were living like lavish millionaires without the million of dollars. And so we had racked up, $60,000 of debt. And also I was leaving my job. So yay, let's do this. That was because I just believed there was, I was only tapping into like 60%, 70% of my full potential. So I had this unwavering belief that there was more coming for me. I just didn't know exactly what the road was looking like. But it was at that time that we decided, all right, we're going to get this debt stuff under control. Fast forward, we did that. And all of that to say, the reason we had tried to do that many times, and we found ourselves in this endless cycle of every time we filed taxes, we just wanted this big chunky refund to pay the debt off. Years that went on. And so what I realized is that so much of my life, not just the debt, but weight loss journey attempts, relationship with girlfriends had been motivated by pain. So in other words, I took action once the pain was deep enough or relevant enough for me to go and move the needle from 0 to 1. And while that is important, right, we need a starting place to build out from. The struggle is if everything we want in our life is pain motivated, then the moment we start to take action and the pain subsides a bit, right? The moment you start to lose a little bit of weight, or the moment you pay off a bit of debt, or the moment your marriage starts kind of working, when that pain subsides, we don't apply the brake. We just gently take our foot off the gas without knowing, right? And sometimes that sounds like just eat all the pizza, or you can bypass your, medications, or, you can pass on this date night, or you can skip these client calls or podcast recording, right? It's these little tiny nuances that happen. And so if we stay in this place where the internal motivating strategy is reliant on pain, then we end in this endless cycle, or we continue in this cycle of constantly starting over. It's like these exhaustive highs and lows. And I'm sure as I'm sharing, we can kind of place this in various ways in our life. If it's not business or health, it definitely shows up there's not a single person on this earth that won't find this happening in their life somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And the goal then is to help clients realize that this is happening. And this is why they're like, the wheels fall off, or I get success, and 30 days later, I find myself starting back over, right? That's some of the client languaging. And the goal then, from my perspective as a coach, or to help my clients see this themselves, is to begin to shift the internal struggle toward motivation. So that's what we call away from motivation. We're so like inspired by not being in that place. We want to move away from it, where the internal strategy we want to align more to is towards. We're so clear on the vision that we don't care the outcome that happens. We don't care if we pay off $100,000 or $100 of debt yet, or 1,000. We don't care if we've lost 2 pounds. We don't care if we have 5 clients or 100. We're just like, I'm building this thing and I'm moving straight towards it. And that requires a great sense of awareness, and it requires either you yourself or somebody coming alongside you to build out a clear vision, so that we are just like eyes on the prize. We keep moving forward.
I like that. I love talking about motivation. I'm actually writing a chapter in my next book about it, and I've never written about it before. It's just the whole concept fascinates me, and like part of why I write about things is because like I like to nerd out on reading and learning about them as well. One of the things that's helped to me, and this is helpful for anyone listening, and I'm curious what your thoughts are about this. I always have to I don't know if this is pain motivated, but I have to get to a place where I accept that I'm probably going to have to do things that I really don't want to do in order to get to the thing that I want. Like for a long time, I don't have any desire anymore, but I would love to have maybe not even a 6-pack, but just like defined abs. Like I had put so much value on that. Again, I don't care anymore. But I was like, do I want to like eat chicken and asparagus like every day for many days? Do I want to work out that much? Absolutely not. And I don't think that it's a matter of even embracing the things that we have to do, but it's like, am I willing to do the uncomfortable things? And my answer for that is no. But, when I got Hashimoto's and my joints hurt and I felt like shit, and like there were so many physical symptoms, I'm like, okay, my doctor's telling me I need to cut gluten and I need to drink more water and I need to take these meds. And I also should really look into lifting weights. Do I want to do that? Not particularly, especially the gluten thing, but like, do I want to feel better? Yeah. So I'm curious, like kind of break that down. Like, is that an example of like only being pain motivated?
Well, initially you were pain motivated because you probably felt like crap. Like you said,
you physically
might have had belly stuff coming up, headaches, like some of the symptoms of Hashimoto's. And so the idea here is like that away from motivation propelled your action to begin, right? It moves you from the 0 to 1. Now you have 2 options. You can have such clarity on your like, I want to feel so good. Like I want to wake up every day and get out of bed. I want to feel like without joint pain. I want to feel great in my gut, right? And if you keep your eyes forward, right? And I think that requires a little deeper vision work than what we're saying right here on the podcast, but that shifts your strategy to being towards motivated. Now, what would happen to a lot of people is that the moment you started to feel better, if you weren't clear on the why that mattered, then what you would start to say is like, I'll just have this slice of pizza, or I can just skip this workout. And then what happens is you don't realize that those little yeses to the things that don't make you feel good end up leaving you right back in ground zero, which is feeling like junk and pain aches from the disease. And so I think that a lot of people will say externally, why do I keep doing that? And that's because nobody's come alongside them and said, hey, like Andrea, let's shift. Let's get away from strategy. Like, let's put that to the wayside and let's together cultivate something that's going to inspire you in those moments to have such clarity of why you want to feel good, right? Whether that's imagining doing burpees when you're 80 or, for me, like something that keeps me totally inspired in my health and why I don't really waver is I want to be like an active grandparent. Like I want to be the go-to grandparent for my kids, assuming they have children someday, that I could be accessible at all times and I could run with them, do all of these things. And so for me, I'm like, I'm going to be that grandma. I want to be that grandma. And that is my towards strategy.
I also don't want to hurt myself stepping out of the bathtub. Like that's
Easy. So paint that picture, right? Imagery is so overlooked in coaching. It's something I do in my coaching work all the time is our brain is communicating through pictures. Like if I say the word orange, immediately we have a picture that comes up in our mind of what an orange is to us. And so I think another just opportunity with the right coach who understands the power of imagery is then to help you create that, like getting out of the bathtub when you're 80, feeling confident. Like, what does that picture look like so that you are constantly inspired by that imagery to stay in the lane, lift the weights, eat the food that you know is good for your body?
It's like, I think I've maybe finally now at looking down the barrel at 48 years old, have really come to accept the fact that, and especially as I've gotten older, like how much nutrition and hydration and sleep, like the basics that doctors and experts tell us all about, how much it really does affect how I feel. Honestly, I think it took having Hashimoto's to realize how much it could swing the other way. My pain, my physical pain was nowhere near what some people experience. I think I'm finally convinced at this point.
Yeah. I mean, chronic illness is a really powerful away from motivator. And then the question becomes, how do I maintain that focus once I start not experiencing the symptoms as drastically? I mean, some people experience continual symptoms. And so it's very easy reminder to stay the course. Others do not. And so then shifting that internal strategy becomes even more critical to staying the course.
100%. Thank you for that. I want to shift over into a topic that we hear a lot in these parts, and it's around the subject of work-life balance. So how do you, well, let me just back up from there. Like, what are the common struggles that you see? Because you work with a lot of working mothers. And I know there's a lot of people listening who are child free and still struggle with the work-life balance. Some of them throw themselves into their career and struggle to maintain their health, like we were just talking about, or their personal relationships. So well, first, like, what is the common kind of complaint that you hear around work-life balance?
I just don't have time to do it all. I just, like, I'm sure you hear, like, I struggle to make my needs a priority and just fall back into the cycle of doing everything for everybody else.
Yeah.
And when it comes to assessing like what work-life balance is, not even having a clear picture, they wouldn't articulate that out loud, but I don't think they really know what that even looks like for them or what they want it to look like.
Yeah. I just want to kind of like a caveat here. I had Laura Danger on my podcast, and she talks a lot about like the household labor in homes. And I want to put that link in the show notes for anyone who feels like there is a major imbalance, especially if you are in a household where you have a partner. It's usually in heterosexual relationships where the mothers statistically still do a lot of the heavy lifting. They are the managers of the house. It's like so much of a load, and there are conversations that need to be had. Anyway, that aside, where do you start with women with your clients to try to remedy that? I
mean, at first I have a visual, just kind of analogy that's been helpful for me and to articulate that with clients is I was a child of the 80s. My first car was a Honda Prelude. I don't know if you know that.
I was so jealous of the people that had those. Did it have like the triangle back lights?
No, mine didn't. Mine was an 88, but what it did, because I was like a dork in love with Nike, is a giant white swoosh on the back because I was an athlete. But one of the things it did not have, it was a good stereo. So I remember I saved like probably like $300 after Christmas money, and I got a stereo, and it was one of those. Did you ever have one?
Yes, I had one.
Okay, the pull-out ones, right?
Yeah.
That like have a handle and you could pop in and out. So in the event, or just like the face would come out. So in the event anybody would try to break into your car, like
I had that one next. Yeah, the one that with the CD player face that popped off.
Yes. Okay, so I had one of those. So I bring that to mind really when I think of this. But I like to think of my life as a series of dials on that. And I used to think that balance looked like they were all equally turned up to the same number at the same time. And so I just I walk my clients through a practice often just to self-assess. Like if you were to self-assess, what are the 5 categories of your life right now that matter most? And maybe it's, family, it's self-care, it's career, it's I don't know, spirituality, it's friendship. I don't know what those just 5 off the hand that would matter for me. And I think it's just understanding like, where would you rate that dial right now? Like how far are each of those areas turned up? And if you were to look at that, is that what you want? Like, is that where you want those dials to be? And then I ask like, hey, how would you adjust them? And so I think it's just assessing where you're at. And then when there's incongruency there, we feel it. Like we feel it as a woman. And then the question is, okay, so if you want it like this over here, then how do we get from point A to point, B, and begins the brainstorm. So I think that balance is like a term that's very loosely thrown around, but it looks different for everybody and it looks different for us from week to week. So it's important that we identify what's working and where we want to be first.
Yeah, we do a similar exercise with Coaches Training Institute. It's called the Wheel of Life, where people like rate on like a scale of 1 to 10. And usually I have some questions if people are rating it like an 8, 9, or 10 in every area. Like, do you have a clone? But it's normal to have some imbalance and then figuring out like what's the most important to you at this point in your life, because it's going to shift depending.
Yes.
You mentioned self-sabotage before. So can we talk about that a little bit, and maybe even in just like broad strokes? Like how do you, when you suspect that someone is self-sabotaging, like a client or something, how do you kind of either broach the subject or, help someone break those kind of, because I think a lot of times it's habits that happen like from childhood stuff or just so many different variables that it could be, but like, how do you work with a client on self-sabotage?
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting one because I think it is kind of sometimes deep-seated, and I could probably talk about this and teach on this for just an hour separate, but I want to just like do a quick little teaching here to give like wholeness to the discussion, is understanding that our brain is kind of, like wired, right? We have this conscious mind, the stuff we're aware of, and then we have the unconscious mind, the stuff that's kind of hidden below the ocean. And what we hold inside of our unconscious is, to your point, impacted by our upbringing as a child, the good stuff, the maybe not so good stuff that we would perceive. It's also media, it's also relationships, it's our mentors, our teachers. And so just to understand that we all have this, I think of it like as we go through life, if you imagine like a giant fishbowl, it's filled with sand. And throughout our life, as we're moving through our experiences, we have these kind of little beliefs that are put in our radar. And we are like, imagine those beliefs as ping pong balls. And like, as we go through life, we're just like bloop, pushing them down deep into the sand. Sometimes we're aware and sometimes we're not. And through coaching, though, we're shaking that container and we're disrupting that container and we're starting to ask critical questions. And as we do that, these little ping pong balls, if you've never seen this done live, they literally are just like shooting to the top. And now we can see them and we're like self-aware of them. And so we're going like, I consciously want this thing. So we have this evening routine and we think, all right, consciously, I want to go to bed at 10 p.m. I don't know. I'm an early bird, so 9 p.m.
That's like me too.
So 10 p.m. happens, or that's my goal. But unconsciously, there are beliefs, things happening, more deeply. And we're like, every time we go to bed, right? Why does this thing keep stopping?
Keep scrolling through TikTok for 2 hours.
Yeah, right. And it could be just a belief system that we've held our whole life that I am a night owl. Like it could be just that simple, right? And when we own that belief as though it's factual, because I can't tell you how many women I've coached that say, I'm not a morning person, I am a night owl. And while that is a thought that they can absolutely choose, is it factual? Well, they might mount evidence, right, to accept like this is a fact, like look at my life. And what we want to do is really ask ourselves, if you consciously want that to go to bed at 10, what's holding you back from achieving that, right? Well, it's my only time to be to myself. I'm a night owl, right? There's lots of reasons we might that up. But through taking action, right, shaking the container, then we're able to bubble up what's underneath it. And so I like to reframe self-sabotage a little bit, because I want to help my clients understand why it's happening rather than just lump it in this container of self-sabotage and say, I'm self-sabotaging. But let's get aware of, when we go out and take action, what's preventing us, so we can have discussion around what unconsciously is really the root, so we can explore it more.
I have had a couple of experts on who are hypnotherapists who help people with that. And it's super fascinating. So if
that's part of the work that I do.
Do you?
Well. Yeah.
I love that. I have never done it before, but I'd be super open to it. One of my really dear friends is a certified hypnotherapist. Actually, a lot of people I know do it. You know, when you're listening to a song on the radio and you get the profound feeling that the song playing was written about you? Now imagine having the power to gift that same incredible feeling to someone you love with an original song from Songfinch that actually is written just for them. Songfinch lets you create an original radio quality song inspired by your own life and the people you love. It's completely unique, personal, and lasts forever. Whether your song is for Father's Day, an upcoming graduation, wedding, or anniversary, or even just a gift to show your loved one how much you care, start your song now to lock in one of Songfinch's top artists. I gifted Songfinch to myself, a song about my late father, and I'm so excited to play you a clip.
Flipping through the slides of learning how to live and how to love, and coming undone, a father, daughters without, so she writes it down.
One of my clients heard about Songfinch from this podcast, and so she had a song created for her son who was graduating, and she told me that they both cried when she played it for him and that it exceeded her expectations. For a limited time, Songfinch is letting our listeners upload their song to Spotify for free, so you and the lucky person you gift it to can listen to it anywhere, anytime. Go to songfinch.com/noise and start your song. After you purchase, you'll be prompted to add Spotify streaming for your original song for free, a $50 value. Again, my URL is songfinch.com/noise. Don't forget to share your song with us too. songfinch.com/noise.
I'd like to introduce you to the Minimalist Moms podcast. It's hard enough being a mom, and the last thing you need is stress from too much stuff and an overcrowded schedule. For too long, I lived with the mindset that bigger was better, and the more I added to my life, instead of feeling better, I felt overwhelmed. It was time for a radical new mindset. Less is more. I'm not into extremes. I didn't throw everything away. My brand of minimalism is more about adding than subtracting. Get rid of the excess to make room for what you love. In other words, it's about living life with purpose. I hope you'll listen in, and my guest and myself can inspire you to think more and do with less. The Minimalist Moms podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts.
I have found myself over and over in my life coming back to the same patterns, especially with particular people like I've known for whether they're family members or partners. And I'm like, I don't know if you've ever had one of those lucid moments where you're like, am I back here with you? How did this happen? So it's just, I say that also for the people listening who find themselves self-sabotaging, please go easy on yourself. Have some compassion. We all do it. I think it's part of how we're wired, but I love that there are ways and methodologies to reframe it. And I think I just really wanted to emphasize that, because sometimes we can get into so much self-blame and self-criticism of how I've worked on this before. I shouldn't be here. Do you find that a lot too, that people beat themselves up over getting in the same mistakes and places they've been before?
Absolutely. And it's, this is why I think this work is so important, is to understand that the goal is to bring the conscious and unconscious together, right?
Yeah.
In congruency. And when what we say out loud, the goal setter, right, the conscious mind, and the goal seeker, the unconscious mind, are headed in the same direction, then there's so much power to be created. And that's when we start to feel alignment. And we can see this in our lives when we've wanted something and it just felt right, right? Maybe when you were like, I'm going to write this book, and just like everything conspired in favor of you potentially. That's when you know your belief systems are aligned with like the actioning that you're going to do. And I think that's helped me. I see it help my clients is it's no longer a self-blame. Why are you falling short? Why can't you get your stuff together? It's just exploration. And that's what I think is really empowering about coaching yourself, is to go, oh, there isn't like agreement here. So what do I need to do to be in agreement with myself? Or is this thing really for me? Is going to bed at 10 p.m. really for me?
Or is the story that you're making up what it's going to get you, what you're really after?
Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah. I find that getting a lot of sleep is really worth it these days.
Oh, that's number one for me. Always 8 hours.
100%.
Whatever happens, it's 8 hours. It's like for me, it's the first domino in the whole row.
Do you have just on that same topic, do you have like a particular nighttime routine that you do? I mean, like aside from like brushing your teeth and like doing your skincare and like that kind of stuff?
I don't necessarily have a nighttime routine. I wish I could tell you do all these lavish things, but I actually think
I actually would love this answer better that you don't.
I don't. My kids are 13 and 11, and their schedule usually dictates when I can and can't get to bed. My nighttime routine is pretty simple. I tuck them in and it's like, I am ready. But the reason is because I am pretty consistent and really reap the benefits of a consistent morning routine. And so I think by getting up consistently at the same time, which for me is 5 a.m. And enjoying like what I create for my morning routine, that traction, and then obviously exercising for me as a consistency or as a consistent pattern, those things just perpetuate an easy like flow of bedtime because my body's just like, peace, I'm ready.
Do you get up at 5 on the weekends too, or do you sleep in until like
no,
6 or 7?
Yeah, I definitely sleep in, although my body, like sleeping in is probably like 6:30 or something.
Yeah, sleeping in is like 7:30 for me. And sometimes I wake up and I'm like, oh.
7:30 would be amazing. And I guess there's time.
It's glorious.
That happens if we're out late or something. But I just really value the consistency of morning practice. And
so what is your morning practice? I'm curious.
I teach the concept of a power hour. And so you think of the first hour of wake time being your power time, and you get to divide it up however you want. So for me, that's I'm a fan of like red light work. And so I have a red light here and I sit in front of it and I journal. And then
you mean like red light therapy?
Red light therapy. Yeah. Sorry.
I thought you meant like when the red light is on, you're like
red light therapy. Sorry.
Okay, gotcha.
In my office, I have a red light therapy photon. I journal and read 10 pages a day. For me, that's just been a consistent, like, no lofty goals of finishing books in a fast time. I'm just like 10 pages. Sometimes it carries into 2 chapters, usually just some sort of quiet time. Sometimes it's meditation. Sometimes it's just sitting with myself, prayer, like in my own mind, whatever that looks like. And then that's usually the first 30 minutes of just me time. And then I spend the next 30 minutes in the high leverage action of my business that I resist the most.
Okay.
So typically that's some sort of visibility work. Pitching or speaking work or whatever it is, making connections. It's something that I know if my day got started, I would tend to put on a back burner because I'd fall into client delivery mode or some of those other
returning emails. Yeah,
exactly. And so it's actually split. And then my workout comes after I drop off the kids. I don't really do that first thing in the morning because my body is not ready.
I'm with you. Yeah, I do that when I get home from dropping off too. I love the half hour of, I call that like the heavy lifting kind of tasks. And I think no matter what kind of job you're in, even if you're a stay-at-home parent, like there is some stuff you got to do to manage that house that you don't want to do.
Absolutely.
Done first thing.
It's pay the bills, do the planning, do the meal planning, whatever responsibilities that, again, you specifically resist, which is different for everyone. And that could be just friendship connection time. Like if you get inundated with like the have tos, like use that time to bridge the gap with your friends or,
return
whatever.
Texts and
return
DMs.
text or write like a handwritten card. That's also one thing I forgot to mention. I write a handwritten card every day to send to someone, to give to someone. It's from work stuff to my teachers, my kids' teachers, that I feel like need acknowledging. So it really just depends on the day.
I love that. I really love that. I don't have a morning routine that's that involved, but I don't necessarily think people need to have a super involved one to have a successful life. But I love hearing about other people's. Like I'm fascinated by the whole practice of it. I think it's really beautiful.
Yeah. And I think like your personal belief systems, I'll have to align with that belief that it serves you, collect evidence around that, for your life. So I agree, though, it does not have to be an hour. It does not have to be rigorous. 15 minutes of quiet coffee time, just sitting with yourself. I mean, I'm a total proponent of journaling.
That's what I do.
I believe everyone can find value from journaling. And I know that for a long time, that was something that I didn't see value in either. And it takes some time to get there.
I feel like it's the same thing with meditating.
Yes, agreed.
Which I don't do, by the way.
Yeah.
I do on occasion.
Yeah. And again, that's one of those tools that I find value in, but meditation looks differently for everybody too.
True. It could be dancing. It could be spending time in nature, et cetera, et cetera. I want to ask you, this is again, kind of a broad strokes question, but what is the most, and maybe we've already discussed it, but like, what is the most common theme or problem / struggle that you see with your clients?
If I were to just say more general in life coaching clients, I mean, I think we already nailed it, which is work-life balance. And how do I find time to cultivate who I am as a woman? And because I do tend to work with working mothers tend to be the majority of my clients. I have some working fathers. I, again, have people with no children, and it's still a struggle. I've gone into this career or I've become a parent and my identity has shifted. And how do I reconnect to this new version of myself and find time really to connect to this new version of myself and do it in a way that's not just going through the motions. Like I used to like to watercolor, but now I'm 40 and that doesn't even entice me. Right. And so I think it's just cultivating and helping people create self-permission to make space for that when there still feels like there's so many other things that need their attention, and just helping them see that those things can wait. Knowing who you are and what brings joy into your life will actually bleed into those other areas. And that's pretty powerful. Okay.
And this is just like, I'm just kind of being nosy. So you were a teacher. How did you come into this work? And did you find out about like coaching and becoming a coach and then think I could do that and I could leave my job? Or did you first think I need to leave my job and then went and looked for something?
Oh, truthfully, I've coached since I was 15. So
okay.
Coaching job, I was athletic coaching. It was basketball. And then I got the coolest job in high school working for the inaugural season of the WNBA. They hired a whole bunch of young girls to coach like inner city young girls. It was really such a cool job because we got to do and see so many things. And I think the combination of those two things really inspired my desire to impact lives and to see like what it's like to be able to use my cues and motivation and strategy to help people increase their performance. And so I went on to college and grad school, got a degree in secondary ed and coaching, thinking that I really honestly wanted to teach educators. That was kind of the long-term goal. Okay. Then when I had my kids, it was like, this schedule is not actually going to work for me. And my husband, like I mentioned, just his schedule was crazy. So left there knowing I was going to use that skill set, but wasn't really sure how. And it was my own health and nutrition journey really that just had people asking me to coach them. And so I took kind of this skill set and merged it with my health and fitness. And then through that journey, I just fell in love with, honestly, the non-health side of things, just the art of coaching and the life element and the study of adherence and understanding behavior. And that's kind of what led me to now.
Oh, that's neat. I didn't know that about you. We have a similar story because I was my undergrad's in exercise physiology. I was in the fitness industry. And then like wanted to help. I think all of my clients were women. I remember the last straw for me was I had a client who came in and her husband had bought her training sessions and she didn't even really want to be there, but they were trying to conceive a baby. And she said her doctor had told her, maybe if you lose some weight, you'd be able to conceive. And she wasn't even like someone in a bigger body. And I just was like, okay, I can't do this. I just felt called to like help people in a different way. I still love training. I think it's super important. It just wasn't for me. And yeah, that's how I ended up here too. But I want people to know, because you have your own podcast and I was a guest.
Yes,
and so tell people where you, especially for people who are listening who are coaches, I think you're magnificent at what you do. So they would especially be interested in your work, but tell people where they can go to find more of you.
Yeah, one of the best places, just general, is the podcast. It's called the Best Damn Coach Podcast. And we talk about self-coaching. We talk about coaching clients. We talk about entrepreneurship there and have amazing people on like yourself.
Yay!
Instagram is where I am most active. My handle there is A Walk My Way. And, I love performance coaching, life coaching with individuals and corporations. I love working with small teams to just grow their skill set too. So just pop into my DM, say hello. If there's any way I can support you, Instagram is probably just a great and easy way.
Yeah. I love your posts on Instagram. I follow you over there. So of course, all those links will be in the show notes, everyone. Is there anything else you want to say before we end so that you can feel complete?
I feel very complete, but I'll just do one more little tally mark in owning your ability to coach yourself and what a gift that is, not just for you, but the people that you lead or are around. And I just think we need more of that in the world. So that is my last check mark.
Period. Here. I agree wholeheartedly. So thank you everyone for listening. Your time is so valuable, and I'm so incredibly grateful that you choose to spend it with me and my guests. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hey, did you know there's free secret podcast episodes waiting for you that are not part of my regular podcast feed? Yes, AndreaOwen.com/free. And you just sign up. You get a link sent to you. It's very secret. It's like a secret club. We don't have a secret handshake. Don't worry about that. But it's these motivating podcast episodes that I made for you. They're under 20 minutes each. There's 3 of them. They're for wherever you are in your life. So head on over there and grab them. They range from really supporting you and seeing you where you are and being compassionate, all the way to giving you a giant kick in your ass and telling you how amazing and gorgeous and phenomenal you are. So AndreaOwen.com/free and get your hands on that free podcast feed.
Oh, hey, everybody. It's us, Blair and Molly, your old pals from Toddler Purgatory. 2 moms who are also actors, who are also creative beings, who sometimes feel stuck.
And this is our new podcast, Unsticking It with Blair and Molly. What happens when your creative spark just seems to disappear? Gone.
Poof. Bye.
See ya. What happens when life gets in the way of your creativity instead of nourishing it? That's what happened to Molly and me. We felt like the thing that drove us creatively stopped working, and impending doom had in fact impended.
Totally. So we decided to do something about it. And that was steal ideas about getting unstuck from the most creative people we can find. We talked to guests about how to break through the mucky, gluey, sticky wall that can get between you and your creativity. We hear about their journeys, their successes, their challenges, and even their bougie coffee shop orders.
And we're not just talking Bob Ross type paint on paper artists here, though we talk to them too. We're talking to actors, creative directors, dancers, and people who are working hard to be their best creative selves in a world that can sometimes feel real uncreative.
We all have something to teach each other, so let's steal their ideas together.
Join us, won't you, as we deep dive into how to unstick ourselves from the life gunk that can get in the way of our creative freedom. Pandemics, school calendars,
world events, lack of sleep. Oh, get out of their life gunk.
And let's get back to your best creative self. Subscribe to Unsticking It with Blair and Molly.
You're not going to want to miss an episode.
Unsticking It with Blair and Molly, because sometimes life sucks.
Unsticking it.